it's not like any other department where you actually got to be so structured. This is actually non-linear and it's non-structural in a way. It's a very unique department which is amalgamated with both music and academic knowledge, and to enhance whatever you want to know through in your own culture, where you can understand culture and nobody actually dominates their own area, but they all combine together to make you see where you can belong, especially in New Zealand.
I was just very lucky that there is a subfield of anthropology that kind of combined my love for people and music at the same time.
You know, people making music, but also music making people, and we talk about this all the time in ethnomusicology, about the people who make the music and how they make the music, why, where, when.
We pay attention to deeper function that music and dance provide, and we treat that as a ground in which social meaning and the world are shaped.
So ethnomusicology kind of has an ability to develop a language towards thinking of the fuller ways that music is cemented in cultures, not just sound, but what makes a sound, instruments. I mean, even clothing makes sound. If you think of like kapahaka, pia skirts, they make sound. They're also an instrument. The body becomes an instrument, of course, with singing, with dancing.
So it's sort of a Trojan horse in a way, that it looks like we're just looking at music, but we're actually then taking from it all sorts of information. I find in music, they will reveal all sorts of things about how they feel about their bodies and their sexuality, and then the fans as well responding to an artist. So I think ethnomusicology is sort of a really great element of anthropology, in that we're using music to learn about human beings.
And using music to talk about basically everything else, in terms of politics, in terms of law, in terms of Indigenous sovereignty, in terms of class struggles, in terms of mental health, many more things. It's highly interdisciplinary, which is basically a fancy way of saying you get to use lots of stuff.
I thought it was kind of like sits between anthropology and musicology. There's probably like bits of sociology and history and heaps of other stuff. And I kind of like how it sits like slightly outside those more, it's like mainstream, bigger disciplines. I don't know, there's also more room, I think, for like developing more creative methodologies.
The way that people would tell stories through song, the way songs record, memory, but also just kind of trying to decipher the poetry and even the sound itself and the variety of meanings that come out of it. So I'm really interested in how people make meaning.
I'm interested in the performing arts, like what Chinese immigrants in New Zealand they're doing about performing arts.
What role music plays within family relationships, what role music plays within individuals, within the family, within the broader family clan, but also what the musics of the family and the communities that the families are a part of, what that can tell us about, Tongan culture, Tongan identity, Tongan indigeneity.
Yeah, I specialize in East Asian music and dances, traditional and contemporary, live performances or mediated sound. I'm particularly interested in the relationship between music and migration and diasporic community and transnational flow of musical cultures across the world.
I started with looking at hip-hop in Aotearoa, and that led me to looking at things like race and identity and all sorts of Pacific musics and contemporary Pacific musics. It also led me to look at things about gender and sexuality.
Is original Filipino music, which is best description of that is Filipinos creating Filipino music for the Filipinos. It's not just the sound, it's not just the lyrics, but more what does it mean to be Filipino, and that's what really OPM kind of embodies. It actually helps me to create songs that or kind of think deeply of what my songs are all about?
My research focuses on specifically tō iwi, so non-Māori, Pasifika, climate, activist, music and performance, mainly focusing on gender, sexuality and disability through tāwai lenses.
Also focusing on things like the material culture of musics. For example, for me that's quite focused on fashion and clothing.
So the project's going to be on gender and sexual politics in the Aotearoa New Zealand music industry following the Me Too movement.
I am currently very into K-pop, Korean pop music. I'm trying to branch out and not just like stay not just stay in the mainstream K-pop music. I'm trying to like learn more about like Korean history as well, just to get more context.
When we talk about New Zealand culture, as an immigrant, I feel a bit confused. It's like, what is New Zealand culture? Is it New Zealand or bicultural or multiple cultural or something? I think people feel a little bit confused. And one of the reasons that why they feel confused is they don't understand people enough, like different groups. So I think it's interesting that the thing behind the music, the dance, that the stories about all those people.
I mean, for me, the reason why I chose music and family, because growing up in the diaspora, these were kind of the two major things that I felt contributed the most to who I was as a Tongan in America.
Whenever the media goes hype about something, they'll ask me about it. I've got a weekly radio show, and so a lot more interaction, with life and the world. And I've even been had to testify in court, actually twice. It's interactive rather than just writing papers that just sit on a library shelf.
And so for me, there's a lot of skills you gain through writing and reflection and even media. But at the same time, bigger than that for me is how can this help you in your own life in thinking about your own identity, how you have come to see the world, how you have come to understand the world that you have inherited.
Like, I think as a person, you try to identify yourself with something. As a human being, you want to be identified with something. So the identity always drives you to understand who you are. Sometimes philosophically, we would say that it's a soul search. You want to find out from your inside something constantly expanding like the universe to find out who you are. You have to go beyond what you know about yourself. So in that search, you get into different way of understanding knowledge.
Music in everyday life is where you find social meaning and action. Thank you.